latest official figures from the government of Israel on this war. Since the 7th of October a year ago, 771 soldiers have fallen in battle and through acts of terror. 893 civilians have been murdered. 10 Shin Bet personnel have fallen, that's Israel's General Security Service. 67 policemen and women were killed in the line of duty. Just isolating Israel's north for a moment, in the region of 14,500 rockets, drones and missiles have been fired from Lebanon to Israel. This has caused the death of 63 people. That's made up of 31 civilians, including a Thai national and an Indian national, and 30 soldiers. There have been 603 wounded, ranging from very serious wounds to non-life-threatening injuries. And that's 376 civilians and 227 soldiers. Amongst these figures, Israelis are Jews, Druze, Christians, Muslims, Bedouins, Circassians. Together we have fought this war, together we have felt this pain, but together we will achieve victory. Now it's my unenviable task to share with you the names of our fallen soldiers. IDF casualties since the start of this war have unfortunately risen to 771, as I said. Master Sergeant in the reserves, Sar Eliad Navarsky, was 27 years old and from Tel Aviv. He fell in combat in the north of Israel. Major in the reserves, Aviram Hariv, was 42 years old and from Dolev. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Warrant officer in the reserves, Mordechai Chaim Amuyal, was 42 years old and from Lod. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Sergeant Major in the reserves, Shmuel Harari, was 35 years old and from Tzfat. He too fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Master Sergeant in the reserve, Shlomo Aviad Naiman, was 31 years old and from Mitzpah Yericho. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Sergeant First Class in the reserves, Shuvael Ben Natan, was 22 years old and from Rechalim. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Sergeant First Class Guy Ben Arosh was 23 years old and from Pardes Chana. He too fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Warrant officer in the reserves, Guy Idan, was 51 and from Kibbutz Shemarat. He was killed in battle in southern Lebanon. Warrant officer in the reserves, Omri Lotan, was 47 and from Bat Hefer. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Captain in the reserves, Alon Safrai, was 28 and from Jerusalem. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Major in the reserves, Dan Maori, was 43 years old and from Bat Yitzchak Shah Hefer. He too fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Master Sergeant in the reserves, Tom Sigal, was 28 years old and from Ein Habasor. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Sergeant Hillel Ovadia was 22 years old and from Jerusalem. He too fell in battle in the north of Gaza. Sergeant Ido Ben Svi was 21 years old and from Shomrat. He fell in battle in the north of the Gaza Strip. Captain Barak Yisrael Sagan was 22 years old and from Petach Tikva. He fell in battle in the north of Gaza. Master Sergeant in the reserves, Gilad El Malaich, was 30 and from Jerusalem. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Captain in the reserves, an army rabbi, Avraham Yosef Goldberg, was aged 43 and from Jerusalem. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. captain in the reserves Amit Chayut was 29 and from Haifa. He fell in battle in southern Lebanon. Major in the reserves Eliav Amram Abitbol was 36 years old and from Eitan. He fell in southern Lebanon. Sergeant Major in the reserves Shaul Moyal was 47 and from Karnei Shomron. He too fell in battle in southern Lebanon. First Sergeant Malachi Yehuda Harari was 22 years old and from Even Shmuel. He was severely wounded in battle in northern Gaza on the 18th of October, but succumbed to his wounds yesterday. As the Prime Minister has said just yesterday, speaking for the entire nation, we stand in awe of the heroism of the fallen, the heroism of their families put through indescribable suffering, grief and pain that cannot be described. We are in the midst of an existential war and a difficult war, a war that exacts a painful price from all of us. May our fallen be blessed and be remembered in our hearts always. On Iran, the Prime Minister said that 3 weeks ago, after we eliminated Iran's greatest emissary, the mass murderer Hassan Nasrallah, Iran attacked Israel with hundreds of ballistic missiles. This attack failed. The Prime Minister and the government then promised that Iran would be answered firmly. And in the early hours of Saturday morning, Israel kept its promise. The Air Force attacked throughout and deep into Iran. Israel severely damaged Iran's defense capacity and its ability to produce missiles aimed directly at us. Now an update from Jabalya in northern Gaza. This information was just released this afternoon. Hamas have been attempting to regroup. As such, the IDF are conducting a precise operation against Hamas embedded inside the Kamal Adwan hospital in Jabalya, all the while preventing harm to civilians. Our intelligence showed terrorists had embedded themselves inside the hospital in Jabalya, now a classic Hamas and Hezbollah tactic. Soldiers enabled civilians to leave the hospital and maintained essential hospital systems and patient care. The IDF provided an additional generator and oxygen supply for patients. Terrorists, including Hamas terrorists who actually took part in the October 7th massacre, barricaded themselves inside the hospital. Our soldiers, apprehended around 100 terrorists from the compound. Terrorists attempted to escape during the evacuation of civilians. Inside the hospital, IDF found weapons, RPGs, explosives, terror funds, and intelligence documents. Throughout the war, Hamas terrorists have repeatedly operated from inside hospitals across the Gaza Strip, urging them and using them to hold hostages, to execute terror attacks, and to store weapons and explosives. But the IDF continues to act in accordance with international law and act against Hamas terrorist organizations while avoiding harm to civilians. Now, if you check out the IDF Telegram feed, you can see evidence, including a remarkable video showing the interrogation of an ambulance driver from Kamal Radwan Hospital, apprehended because of suspicion of his involvement in supporting terrorist activity. As I said, this testimony is eye-opening. Finally, an update from COGAT and their mission getting aid into Gaza. The latest update is 1,886,000, that's 1,086,000 tons of aid have gone into Gaza. Hamas wanted a humanitarian crisis. Israel has prevented one. And still, our daily reminder that 600 trucks of aid are awaiting to be distributed on the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom by UN aid agencies. Since the beginning of this war, food, medication, and vaccines are delivered daily with no limits on the quantities. The polio vaccination program has seen Israel cooperating with the World Health Organization and UNICEF to prevent a polio outbreak in Gaza and the entire region. So that's the end of our briefing today. Please put your questions in the chat together with your outlet, and we'll take them. I can see a question here from Tamura. Please put your outlet there, Tamura. First question is from David Clement from the News Forum. Does the PMO have comment on Egyptian president's proposed two-day ceasefire deal? Thank you for that question, David. Look, on the hostage crisis, look, we are continuing to do everything in our power, and I mean everything in our power, to bring back all 101 hostages, the living and fortunately the deceased alike, the ones that Hamas have already killed. As you know, amongst them they are women, 13 women, they are children, those two Bibas children, they are the elderly, and they'll still be cruelly held now for over a year in Hamas captivity. So yes, I can confirm, David, that an Israeli negotiation team is currently in Doha, and we are attempting to reach a hostage deal with the assistance of the US and the other mediating countries. And I'll say to you very, very clearly in response to your question that Israel is interested in reaching an agreement that aligns with the objectives of this war. Now, I can again confirm what we've said in the past, that the Hamas terror organization continues to impose conditions that prevent progress from towards reaching an agreement. Next question is from Tamara from NHK Japan. Thank you. The question is, what is the official stance of the Israeli government on the linkage between UNRWA and the Hamas organization? If the Knesset passes the bill to ban its activity, what will be the alternative? Thank you for that question, Tamura. Let me share with you our views on UNRWA, and we have made these very, very clear. And I want to share some even newer information today. So, look, on UNRWA, Israel has requested clarifications from the UN regarding the active participation of UNRWA employees in the October 7th massacre. Now, for example, the IDF have shared with us over the last few days alone, just in the last few days alone, a Hamas commander who was killed. Now, he was also an UNRWA employee and was directly involved in the brutal murder and abduction of Israeli citizens. So this case is just one of many in which UNRWA employees in Gaza are exposed as terrorists, and they have actively participated in the October 7th massacre. All this shows UNRWA as an organization is infected with terrorism. Not a few bad apples, as UNRWA employees like to make out, but the organization being infected with terrorism. It is no surprise that Sinwar's bodyguards carried UNRWA identification. They actually carried UNRWA identification. In Sinwar's hideout, we found UNRWA clothes, UNRWA bags, UNRWA documents, all sorts of UNRWA paraphernalia. Why? Because UNRWA employees have been exposed as terrorists. Buildings have been used as a cover for rocket launching sites. Schools have been turned into dens of incitement and pro-terrorist education. They've doubled up these schools, these former schools, because they're not schools anymore if they've been taken over by Hamas, but they've doubled up as havens for terrorists and for their weaponry. So look, in answer to your question, the answer is obvious. UNRWA simply must be replaced. That is the view of the Israeli government and the overwhelming majority of Israel's people. They must be replaced with other organizations that are not infected with terrorism. You wouldn't think that was a high bar, but other aid organizations to do the work which is needed in Gaza to distribute aid are needed, but not those which are infected with terrorism. Now, let me send this message from the Israeli government to other states that fund UNRWA right now. Be in no doubt, and we have shared all the evidence, be in no doubt that UNRWA is an organization that is harming the region and its future. Okay, I hope that answers that question directly. Next question here is from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. First, Israel reportedly hit the Parchin military base in Iran in Saturday's strike, which was widely reported to be an undeclared nuclear site. Does Israel consider that target to be a nuclear site? Thank you for that question, Joel. I've got nothing more to add. Needless to say, as the Prime Minister made clear yesterday, Israel knows everything there is to know about Iran, including all sites of interest, of threat to this country. And we take extremely seriously our responsibility to defend ourselves, because that is precisely what we will do. The message will have gone through, as reiterated by the Prime Minister yesterday, to the leaders in Iran, not the people of Iran, because we believe that up to 80%, perhaps even more, of the people of Iran are subjugated by the regime in Iran. But the regime in Iran know precisely where we have hit. They know that our hits have been extensive, and the Prime Minister made clear what our objectives were when it comes to Iran, and we've shared that with you today as well. And two, critics have said that a Trump rally at Madison Square Gardens, you're talking at okay, so this is a question about the Trump rally. If it's all the same to you, Joel, the US is in the midst of a tightly fought election, and certainly Israel will not be getting involved in the decision of how Americans vote. That's down to American citizenship. But needless to say, the relationship between Israel and the US is absolutely key. It's a cross-party relationship. It goes across the aisle, and no matter who wins, we are confident that important relationship, that healthy and that productive relationship between two great nations, where our contacts are very, very frequent at almost every single level of government. We are the closest of allies. Our militaries are coordinated because we share, of course, the same goals. Thank you for the invitation, Joel, but I won't be weighing into the US presidential election. Thanks for the offer, though. Next, another question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Is the proposal to release 4 hostages for a 48-hour truce an Egyptian proposal or an Israeli one? Thank you, Joel. I think I've answered that question. Your next question is, there are reports in Al-Quds newspaper that Sinwar left orders to protect the hostages and give their precise locations. Is that true? And does Israel plan to act on that information? Thank you for that question, Joel. Look, we've made our views clear, and I have made the government's views clear here about the hostage situation. They are our highest priority. The Prime Minister has reiterated the fact that they are our highest priority. We are involved in those negotiations in Doha. Our team is there right now, and Israel will do everything in its power to bring back all 101 of them. Okay, everything in its power, the living and the sadly murdered alike. We're going to bring them all home. The Prime Minister has called it our highest priority. So you can read into that Israel takes these issues extremely seriously. For a year, they've been held in Hamas captivity. It is a second by second humanitarian crisis against humanitarian law. not enough people are, or governments are putting enough pressure on Hamas. It is incumbent on all governments to put pressure on Hamas. They're not just Israeli citizens, they're US citizens, and they're other citizens as well. But our Israeli negotiating team is in Doha, and we are, as usual, we are trying to reach a hostage deal with the assistance of the US and other mediating countries. Yes, of course, Israel wants to reach an agreement, which of course aligns with our objectives of this war. Okay, that's the last question today. Thank you for joining us. We'll have another briefing at the same time tomorrow. So in the meantime, please do stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.